the current sways. You were my anchor in the waves. Nothing could ever separate me from your heart. Every doubt fades when you speak, silencing every disbelief. Breathing your truth inside of me, you set me free. When my heart starts breaking, when the weight gets heavy, when the world starts shaking, you hold me steady. When my hope is caving and my strength is ending, you are never failing. You hold me steady.
Wanna know the deepest parts of your
open up my eyes. Wake me up inside and lead my soul. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you more. All I know is that I'm desperate for you. Oh, you know. All I know is that I'm desperate for you. Show me your love. Show me your love. Won't you hold my heart tonight and blow your arms up your kingdom? Show me your love. Show me your love. Show me your love. No, it's that I'm desperate for. Show me your love. No, it's that I'm desperate for. Show me your love. Desperate for. Show me your love. Desperate for. Show me your love. No, it's that I'm desperate for you. I'll run to you. You will always be enough. There is nothing like your love. I'll trust in you, 'cause no one knows me like you do. And yet still you want my heart. And all I want is to be with you. You are my hope, my life, my only truth. Your love is calling me somewhere new, closer to you. So close I can hear your heart. I can see your light breaking through the night. Your love brings my heart to life. All I want is to be so close to you. So close I can hear your heart, leading me with every beat to the rhythm of your grace. There is no limit to the love you have for me. You alone are my escape. And all I want is to be with you. You are my hope, my life, my only truth. Your love is calling me somewhere new, closer to you. So close I can see your light breaking through the night. Your love brings my heart to life. All I want is to be so close to you. So close I can hear your heart. I can see your light breaking through the night.
Welcome to Worship from the Grove. We're glad you're here with us. Let's take this time right now and worship God together. Don't lose heart, oh my soul, oh my soul. Don't give up, there is hope, there is always hope. Take this time right now, just focus on Jesus. Lift up your praise to Him. Nations bow, mountains shake at the sound of just one name. Over all, Jesus reigns, I know. All right, lift that up again. Nations bow, mountains shake at the sound of just one name. Over all, Jesus reigns, I know, I know. Shout of praise, there is a lion roaring, Jesus the King of glory. There is a lion roaring, Jesus the King of glory.
Hey, what's up, Grove? Welcome to church this weekend. We're so glad that you're joining us. It has been hot, and you know that. It's been so hot here in Arizona, but our ministries have not stopped, and we have not slowed down. I was at dinner 2 weekends ago, and there was a Grove family that saw me, and they thanked me and the Grove for what we've been doing as a church, for just continuing to create content and do ministry. And that meant so much to me, and it means so much to our church and our team, because our team has been working so hard, you guys, to continue to do ministry. We had our high school team do a virtual summer camp last weekend, and it was epic. We had our preteen ministry do an amazing race this week, and it was awesome. And then our junior high team is also doing a virtual camp this weekend. So I just wanted to say, everything that you give, it allows us to continue to do ministry and to not stop or to not slow down. So thank you for that. And I wanted to also let you know that we have a cool opportunity for our art community and our art ministry. On this Monday night at 6:30 p.m., we're having an online virtual art class. And there's already been 50 people that have signed up. So if you're interested in joining us for that art class, go online to thegroveaz.org/art and make sure you sign up for that. And I just wanted to ask that if you call the Grove Church your home, that you would continue to make giving a part of your worship. And you can do that by texting the word, the Grove AZ, to 77977. Again, that number is 77977. And I just wanted to ask if you would stand with me wherever you're at, if you would pray with me for our church, for today's message, for our worship, that God would center our hearts. And so pray with me now as we get ready to go back into a time of worship. God, we thank you for today, God. We thank you for the relationship that we have with you. We thank you for our church community, God. We thank you for people that are continuing to invest into what you're doing in our world. And so I would ask that you would continue to stir up our hearts, God, continue to move our hearts for the things that move your heart, God, for the things that stir up your heart. And I pray for our church community, God, that we would continue to be all in, God, and that you would open up our hearts this morning as we worship you and who you are. I pray that you would help us to receive your word, God. I pray for Scott as he gets ready to come up and to preach and to teach, that our ears would be open, God, that our hearts would receive what you are saying. So thank you for our team here at the Grove. Thank you for our worship ministry, God. Move our hearts in worship right now. We pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.
I stand before you now. The greatness voice of your renown. I have heard of the majesty and wonder of you, King of heaven. In humility I bow, and as your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. You make a way for us, oh yeah. I've heard you calling my name. I have heard the song of love that you sing. Whoa, so I will let you draw me out beyond the shore into your grace. Oh, your grace, and as your love and wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over me. For you are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way. And as your love and wave after wave is over me. You are for us, you are not against us. Champion of heaven, you made a way. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. Oh, you're making a way for Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see.
God's grace can be a hard thing for us to comprehend sometimes, because it comes counter to how so many things in our world are. We're used to having to earn everything. We work a job, we get a paycheck. We do something good and we receive favor or reward. But God's grace doesn't work that way. God's grace for us comes freely. And when we put our faith in Jesus, it washes away all the mistakes and all the things that weigh us down. And I want to read you this passage from the book of Ephesians. It's from Ephesians 2:8. It says, "For you are saved by grace through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It's God's gift, not from works, so that no one can boast. For we are his creation, created in Jesus Christ for good works, which God prepared ahead of time so that we should walk in them." Nothing we can do will earn us God's favor. Nothing we can do will earn his love or his forgiveness. It comes freely. There's so many times that doesn't make sense, because there's so many times that we don't deserve love at all. In fact, 100% of us don't deserve God's love because we've done things to distance us from God. But God's love reaches out. It goes beyond the halfway point. It reaches to where we are. And all of us who carry shame and guilt, God's love washes all that away. Doesn't make sense. He loves us when it doesn't make sense. And when we receive the grace and the love of God, we can share that with the people around us too. Our world it's a place with so much division right now. There's so much arguing and fighting and disagreements. And if we bring the love and grace of God into the places that we go, we can change the tone of this world. Imagine bringing that love that doesn't make sense into your workplace and treating the people who you work with that same unconditional grace and love that we receive from God. Imagine all through your day, whether you're at the grocery store or in the drive-thru, all throughout your day, when you're encountering people, your first response is to act in love and to share that love of God with others, even when it doesn't make sense. It's the love that we can bring into a space like social media, which social media can be a great place to connect and have community, but it can also be a really toxic place. And it's a place where it's so easy to pick up a stone and throw it at others. But we can put those stones down. And we could be people who respond in love and grace, just like God has for us, with the things that we post, the things that we comment on our social media. We can be people who change the tone of that entire space. We can bring that same love and grace into our own homes too, where our families are. And it's hard sometimes because being a husband's hard, being a father is hard, being a parent, it's difficult. And today, Scott's going to be talking about leading your family. And I'm so thankful that we have a model of grace from our Heavenly Father and how it is unconditional, because I need a whole lot of grace. And I'm thankful to have a wife who I've been married to for 20 years who has shown me time after time just unconditional grace. And my hope and prayer for you right now is that you would receive the grace that God has for you, that you wouldn't carry around that shame and guilt of the past, of mistakes, of things that you wish you had done different, that you would release that to God and be free of it right now. And that you in turn would take that love and grace of God and share it with the people around you and love like Christ always. Can go back to the beginning, can't control what tomorrow will bring, but I know here in the middle is the place where we promised to be. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? As I walk now through the valley, let your love rise above every fear, like the sun chasing a shadow. In my weakness, the glory appears. Not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again?
Hey, Grove. Well, thank you for joining us. As Josh said earlier, we are so glad that you are here tuning in with us. If you were here last week, then you know that Palmer started a new series, a series called Lead Me. And we're excited to continue it today. Each week, we are going to be looking at a different area or aspect of our lives that we can develop and lead better and influence those that we are around. And so today, as Josh said a moment ago, I'm going to be talking about leading your family. And I hope that you track with me today, because I know that some of you right now are thinking, I'm single and I'm not leading a family yet, so this doesn't really have much to do with me. Or maybe you're on the other end of this thing and you're like, hey, I did lead a family. They're kind of all grown up and moved out, and I'm past that now. Wherever you may be in the spectrum, I hope that you do track with me for the next few minutes, because I think that there's things that you're going to hear that can be helpful for you, that can be helpful to you right now today, wherever you are. They could be maybe helpful as you even look back at your family that you grew up in, gain a better understanding maybe of why they did some of the things that they did and where that came from. And it certainly could be helpful as you try to be a better person and help other people that are leading their family. So there's all different reasons of why I think we can all gain something from this. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well. So my wife, Julie, and I, we've been married for 23 years, and we started out parenting a few years after we were married. So we started out, we had one kid, and we're like, hey, this seems to be going okay. We're like, hey, this parenting thing, we don't know what we're doing. We're new at it, but seems all right. Let's maybe try again and have another. So then we had a second kid and then a third kid. And we're never perfect parents, of course, but we're doing this and we're thinking, this seems to be going okay. Maybe we should take our parenting skills and put them to work with other kids. So then we started doing foster care, and for 5 years or so, we brought in various kids into our home and started parenting them. That was when we began to realize that maybe we don't know as much about parenting as maybe we thought we did, and then that led to this time of adopting a few kids. And so we brought in 3 kids. We adopted them, made them part of our family. And here's the bottom line. Here's what I'm getting at. At the end of all of that now, we are quite convinced that we know very little about parenting, right? Because it's true of so many things. The more you know, the more you understand, the more you realize how much you don't know. Here's the one thing I do know about families, about leading a family, is that it is anything but easy, right? It is difficult. It is challenging. It is hard. And what is the number one thing that you have and that I have to help us lead our families? The number one thing we have is the family that we grew up in, what was modeled to us, what we experienced. And for some of you, you grew up in a great family. You had a great model, a great experience, and that's awesome. For some of you, it wasn't so good. Your parents, they just maybe didn't do a great job at it. For some of you, you were in bad environments where maybe it was abusive or neglectful, or maybe a parent wasn't even there. They weren't even present. And so that is your model. That is your experience that you're drawing from to try to help you now lead your family. And it's not easy. And leading a family and having kids and getting married, none of those things, none of them come with instructions, right? It'd be kind of nice if it did, although I don't know if we'd end up reading them all anyway. But it's just none of those things come with instructions. And as I'm sure you agree with me, this is anything but easy. It's a hard thing to do. And so I want to look at one passage specifically that actually gives us some instructions. There's 2 key passages in the Bible. There's other ones, of course, but 2 key ones, one in Ephesians, one in Colossians, that give some instructions for our families. And I want to look at a few verses in there because I think there's some things that we can glean from that will help us as we lead our families. So turn over, if you would, to Ephesians 5, or if you have an app or some device, go there as a reminder. If you download the Grove app, there's a section on there where all of the notes that they're going to be showing up on the screen as you're watching this, but all the notes are in the app, so you can track and follow along with them as well and have that in writing for you already. So turn over to Ephesians 5, and what we're going to see as we begin this thing is that leading our families, it doesn't begin with kids. And it doesn't begin with parenting strategies. It doesn't begin with putting play dates on the calendar. All of those things are important, but leading your family, it actually begins with your marriage. Our marriage becomes the starting point, the building block of leading our family. So again, Ephesians 5, and we're going to start at verse 21. Some fun verses here that maybe you've read before. And they go like this: submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. Let me pause for just a second here. As I read these verses, which one of these verses is harder for us to read? Verse 21, the first one, submit yourself to one another. Okay, then we come to that next one, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. And for many wives, obviously that would be a hard verse to read. It's kind of like, hey, what's going on there? Think about this with me for just a second, though. Think of the original audience, the original people that read this. Which verse was harder for them to read? And I would suggest to you that verse 22, wives submit to your husband, was not hard for them to read. In first century Greco-Roman culture, wives, they were often seen as property. They did not have privileges and power. For them to submit to their husbands was a normal way of life. Really, in many ways, for their own survival even. They were viewed as lesser than and oppressed, which is obviously none of that's a good thing. But my point is simply this, that they would read that verse and say, yeah, wives submit to your husband. Sure, not a big deal. But the verse before that, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ, I think that's the one that would be harder for all of them to read at that time. That's the one that would cause husbands to say, wait a second, did you just say that I'm to submit to my wife? Well, that's interesting. That seems new and different. And wives would read that verse and say, wait a second, did you just say to my husband that he in some way is supposed to submit to me? This is unheard of, right? That verse would be much harder for them to read and understand. And here's the point that he's getting at in all of this that we'll see is that a marriage is where each spouse equally cares for each other. It's not to be a competition like our marriages and families so often become, right? This competition. We'll talk more about that later, but it's not to be about, it's about to be this equality, right? This equal love and respect and care for each other. So let's read on and see what this looks like. We'll start at verse 22 again. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. In our house, we have a sign on the wall. It's kind of like a plaque thing. And it says this, it says the word family, and then it kind of gives like a definition to it, and it's made to look like that. It says family, a group of people who genuinely love, trust, care for, and look out for each other. And so here, we've already seen, hey, submit to one another. And wives, this is what it looks like for you to do that to your husbands, to respect them, to be loyal to them, to honor them. And notice what he says, why they're to do that. Remember, I said, wives, submit to your husband, nothing new. That was common knowledge to them. But what is new here is the reason why they're to do that. And it's coming from a new motivation. He says, do it as unto the Lord. That is your motivation. That is why you're to love him, to submit to him, to respect him, to care for him. And then he goes on to talk about husbands, has a lot more to say about there. Look at verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands, you ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one has ever hated their own body, but they feed it and they care for it, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. And then he references back to the beginning of marriage. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ in the church. And he sums it up with this. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So, wives, you're to respect and be loyal to your husbands. Husbands, you are to love your wives in this sacrificial way. Because when we first hear love your wife, we're like, well, of course, why would I even marry her if I didn't love her, right? But it's like, oh, no. But what I mean by that is in this selfless, sacrificial, literally life-giving way, because the model is after Jesus, and that's exactly what he did for us. And you do this in a way that nurtures her and cares for her so she flourishes and thrives. Remember the context of this culture. Wives were oppressed, property, no privileges, no power, treated as less than. So the picture he's painting here is new, and it's a bit astounding and jarring, not for the reasons that we often think of when we read these verses, certainly not in the ways that this passage has been misused. It's not jarring for any of those reasons. It stands out as a picture for how wives and husbands are to work together and care for each other. In fact, the metaphor he gives is he says, husbands, you're the head of your wife. And what does that make the wife? That makes her the body, right? She's the arms, torso, the legs. It's a metaphor. Well, what happens with our bodies? He says, just as you care for your bodies, care for your wife. I mean, my body, your body, it only works and functions well and thrives when it all cares for each other. Anything going on in my head affects my whole body. My body supports and affects my head. It all works together. And when any type of separation happens there's problems. And that's the point. The point is to nurture and care for yourselves as one, because you, husband and wife, are united together. So I started watching, and I'm not recommending this, The Walking Dead. Just hang with me for a second. Old show, ended a long time ago. I know I'm way behind the curve. I'm catching up. And it's a zombie thing. Lots of people getting crushed. I'm not recommending it. Here's my point, though. So there's zombies, and the only way you kill is the Walking Dead, right? They come after you, and they're dead, but they're alive, and the only way to really kill them is you gotta do something to their head, put a bullet in their head, crush their head, whatever. Super gory. Don't watch it. I just started season 3. And at the beginning of first of all, season 1 and 2, they take out zombies by shooting them or cracking their head open or something like that. The beginning of season 3, this woman shows up with this samurai sword, and she just goes around, and her technique is she just literally severs the head off of them. It's actually kind of cool. And the head falls off, and the zombie goes down. So here's the thing. I mean, even a zombie is going to keep coming at you, right? Unless you sever the head from the body, and then it goes down. How much more is going to happen to us in our relationships, in our marriages, if our head and body, if the husband wife isn't working together well the way they should, we will crumble. Our marriage will fall apart. We've seen it. We've experienced it, some of us, over and over again. It has to be working together, caring for one another. And I know that some of you are like, okay, I get all of that, and that's great, but you don't know what this spouse has done to me. You don't know what this kid in my family has done to me. You don't know what we've gone through. I no longer can care for them and love them in these ways that were this respectful, sacrificial. I can't do that because of what they've done. And I don't know, of course, what has been done to you. I know the things that I've done. I know the things that have happened in my family. What I do understand is what you mean when you say, he, she, my child, whoever in my family does not deserve to have this type of respect or love or care from me or from whoever. I understand that. But grace, Josh just talked about this. We sang about it. Grace is never about what we deserve. This is not about what we deserve. Jesus didn't climb up on a cross and bleed and die for us because we somehow deserve that. It was quite the opposite state that we were in. We didn't deserve it, but he gave everything for us. And again, that's the motivation here, right? He says, no, you don't do these things because that spouse or your kid or that they deserve it. You do these things as unto the Lord. There's a higher calling and a higher purpose for your marriage and for your family, and you're loving and caring for each other out of your reverence, respect, love, loyalty first and foremost to God. It's done unto him. And for this to happen, something key, this is the second thing, last thing I'll say about marriage, and then we're gonna move on to some parenting things. And we've got another week coming up in a few weeks where we're gonna talk about marriage again, because I know there's so much to say. There's in marriage and leading your family, and we're just talking about a few things today. So we'll come back to the marriage again in a few weeks. But one other thing that I just wanna say today is that in order for this to happen, in our marriages, we must put to death the power struggle that we can get into with our spouses, with our kids, in our whole family environment, the power struggle that can take place there. We must figure out how to put that to death, how to end it. And I'm talking about, the power for control, where we want to be in charge. We want to have control. I recently got Roku for the TV, and it came with a remote. And of course, everyone wants the remote because the remote is control, and so they want that. But what my kids don't know, and I don't have my phone on me now, and I'm banking on the fact they're maybe not going to see this at the moment, is that the Roku has an app. I downloaded the app, and there's a remote in the app, so I always have control. It's awesome. I love it. I always have the remote, no matter who has the remote, right? And in that case, that's fine. Nobody cares. It doesn't really matter. But in other cases, our power, our desire to have control in our relationship, that will start to work against what's happening. We start to one-up each other in this power struggle, right? I mean, if you do this, then I'm going to do that. And if you're going to do that, then I'm going to do this. And it happens in our marriages, and it happens sometimes even more with our kids, because I'm dad, because I'm mom, and because you're the child. If I say this, you will do it. And then they don't respect us, or they disobey, or they backtalk us, or whatever, and then they do, and then we want to up them. And you can see just doing this, what has happened to equality? It's gone. Right? This is equality. And as soon as we get into this power struggle where we're trying to up each other and outdo, whether it's the power to be in control, or the power to be right, or the power to be better than, like I will win, you won't win, whatever that power struggle is, the separation begins. And it won't be long until the samurai chick from The Walking Dead shows up at your house, and she will finish the job that you have already started in this pecking, in this power struggle, and that will just bring havoc into your family. We must put the power struggles to death. I think one of the ways, or what's so important in that is, when we treat each other in ways we shouldn't, when we do things and say things we shouldn't, when we act in ways that we shouldn't, we begin to see that person differently. Right? We begin to view our spouse, or our child, or our family. We begin to view it differently. And when we view it differently, we want to start to withhold love, care, nurture, whatever, privilege, opportunity. We want to withhold that. And when we find ourselves in that place, and we find ourselves falling into this power struggle, we've got to stop and pause and say, God, help me to see my spouse, to see my kid, to see them the way that you see them. Because right now I am just seeing all sorts of horrible things, and it's just causing me to say, man, you don't deserve any of this right now. And it's causing me to want to fight with them and argue and get into the power match. God, help me to see them the way that you saw me when you climbed up on that cross. And it wasn't because I had my act together. It wasn't because I had it all figured out. It wasn't because I was doing it all right. Would you help me to see my spouse, my kids in that way, to change my view of them so that I can once again love them, care for them, nurture them, respect them, so we can get back to mutual submission in honor and put the power struggle to death. So hopefully you can see already where these things, I'm talking about marriage, but I'm not just talking about marriage. These things tie directly into our parenting and into our kids and our family dynamics and relationships. In fact, he goes on to say a couple other things about this. So we'll continue on. Look at Ephesians 6, verse 1. He says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. So leading your family, it begins, I truly believe it begins with your marriage. That's the foundation. That's the first building block. But I want to go on to say that leading your family, lead it with a good, godly parenting. As Paul starts to kind of unpack the kids and the father, or we could also use the word parent there. That could include parents, or that word could be used for parents. So fathers and mothers, it can include them. Lead them with good parenting and with godly parenting, right? Now, remember, just as wives were seen as less than, kids were the same way in the ancient world at this time. In the ancient world, kids were less than. They were kind of nobodies. They had very little, if any, value, okay? Nobody was throwing some big old schwanky, fancy hoopla party, and then someone's like, man, what's the occasion? Who's getting married? What king is coming into town? You're like, oh, no, it's Johnny's, first birthday. Okay, no, wasn't happening back then. Kids did not have that type of privilege or power either. So it would be easy. That would just make it all the easier for parents to be too demanding on their kids, to treat them too harshly. And so that's why he's kind of addressing this and speaking to this. So I just want to give a few things, mention just 3 things to help us lead our families with good and godly parenting. Just a few things for you to think about today. Here's the first one. Remember this, that you are raising kids, so stay focused on the long term, right? We're raising kids, so stay focused on the long term. Do you want your kid to be the best of the best right now? Is that your goal? Is that your goal, that your kid is the best on the team, has the best opportunities, has the newest and latest of everything? Is that your goal? Or is it more long-term than that? Or is it to be the best long-term? See, when we have that mindset, that helps us say no a little bit more to them instead of giving them anything they want or everything they ask for, every opportunity. It's okay to say no. And one of the things that helps us say no at times is we as parents, we remember, I'm focused long-term here. I want you to be the best long-term, not the best. My goal isn't that you are the best 8-year-old right now, right? Like, I'll take my 8-year-old, sit him down next to your 8-year-old, put a plate of food in front of him. Mine will eat anything and outdo yours every time, okay? Put homework as that, mine smarter than outdo yours every time. On the field, on the court, mine will. Is the goal to have the best 8-year-old, or is your goal to have the best 28-year-old? And I would suggest to you that the goal that we should have as parents, because we're long-term focused, the goal is that we want to have the best 28-year-old. Jesus says this great verse. I love how he says it. It's in Mark 8:36. He says, what good does it do to gain the whole world and yet forfeit your soul? Think about what he's saying, though. What good does it do if we are so right now, short-term focused, that we want to be the best of the best right now? We want to have it all now. We want to complete it all. We want to be at the top of we want to gain it all right now. What good does that do if in the long run, if in the long term, you lose your soul? Keep a long-term focused. So when you are parenting your kids, when you're leading your family, and it is hard, and you are just having another day, and you know what I mean. It's a day. And you don't know how you're gonna get through that again. You don't wanna get through it again. You're tired of it all. When my wife and I are in that place, we remind ourselves that we know these days are long. They feel long. There's only 24 hours in them. Sometimes they feel like 3 weeks in a day, right? They just feel like they last forever. The days are long, but the years are short. The years go by quick. And what's our goal? Our goal is long term, right? Those years go by quick. It won't be long until that 8-year-old is 28. And I care far more about who he or she is when they're 28 than when they're 8. Remember that the days are the long and they're hard, but hang in there, stick with it, keep doing your best at parenting. Be a good, godly parent. Stay focused on the long term. You're raising a kid to know God, and the goal is long term. Second thing that I just want to say about leading your family is parent to discipline, but don't be too demanding. This is one of the things that I think Paul is also getting at in here. Parent to discipline them, yes, but don't be overly demanding or too harsh. So when I read in the NIV, it said, do not exasperate your children. Here's a couple other versions. It says, do not provoke them or do not stir up anger in them. Discipline is long-term focused. Okay, when we discipline our kids, it should be, what it's meant to be is a long-term focused goal. Discipline is basically what we do as parents in our families when our kids start veering off the right path and we bump them back on the good path, the right path. That's disciplining. Right? So we're watching our kids, we're raising them, we're tracking with them, we're partnering with them, we're going through life with them, and then we see them go off the right path and they veer off and we do whatever we need to do to bump them back on that good path. That's discipline, and that is long-term focused. When we demand things of them, that is often short-term focused. We want answers now. We want consequences now. We want results now. We want change now, right? We want a fixed, better, perfect 8-year-old now. I'm not even thinking about a 28-year-old, and I forget that this is long-term focused. I went into KTR a while back, and I was picking up I had 2 kids at KTR. For those of you that maybe don't know, KTR is this massive, huge place of heaven for kids. There's a huge skate park where they can be on skateboards or scooters. There's multiple trampolines that they can jump on. And then there's another huge section where it's all padded and they can bounce and tumble over things. And there's people doing cartwheels, and it's crazy. But, it's paradise for kids. So my 2 youngest kids are in there one day, and I go to pick them up. And so I walk in, and I'm looking around, and there's kids everywhere, okay? I'm talking 100+ kids, a lot of kids. They're bouncing on trampolines, they're skateboarding, tumbling on the mats. Everyone's having a great time, frolicking around everywhere. 2 kids are pulled aside, being talked to by a staff member. Guess whose kids those were? So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I just kind of wait, right? The staff member gets done talking to them, and then they see me and they start walking over. So I'm already like, what is going on? And as they're walking over, she's holding her arm and she says, he hit me, which, that's not okay, right? Talking about her brother. He hit me. So, and then I look at him and he just goes, well, she was calling me names and saying things that she shouldn't say to me. And I look at her and she just goes, no, I didn't say any of those things. So what am I right now? I am instantly annoyed, right? Because he did something he shouldn't have done, right? He hit her. She did something at the moment that she shouldn't have done, which is lie straight to my face because I know she's lying to me. So I'm instantly annoyed with, what do I want to do in that moment? I want to demand. In that moment, I want to say, you're lying. Why are you hitting? Both of you are messed up. Both of you go to your room. Wait, we're in KTR. That can happen right now. We'll do that when we get home. Okay, so what saved me was the fact that we've got, people everywhere and we're not home and I can't send them to their room. And I literally just right after, he hit me and she said this and no, I didn't say a word. I looked away, go put your shoes on. And I'm thinking when I get home, what are all the things that I can lovingly do to them? That's what I'm thinking. And then they're putting their shoes on, they're getting ready. And it was about 8 minutes. And then we start walking out to the car. It was just enough time for me to get my head straight again. It was enough time for them to kind of emotionally calm down as well. And we get to the car and I said, I kind of pulled them both to the back before we got in the car. And I just said, what do you what do you guys need to say to each other? Because I'm thinking, what do I really care about here? What's my long-term goal? I want them to learn to be people that forgive and make things right in their relationships when they wrong each other. That's what I really care. That's what's important here. That's the type of people I want them to be when they're 28, right? And so I pull them in the back. Hey, what do you guys need to do? And they look at each other and they say, I'm sorry. And they both say it, which obviously meant she was lying to me, but we already knew that. They both apologize to each other. I could tell that it's sincere, that they mean it. We go in the car, we go home, and things are a little bit better. That was an example of doing it right. Believe me, there have been more times than not where it's easy for me to demand and to want things here and now. So this idea of disciplining and not being too demanding, it's all about picking your battles, right? And when we lead our families, one of the things we have to really figure out is what battles do we pick? What battles are worth fighting for? How do I discipline but not be too demanding? How do I instruct them and raise them up in the Lord? How do I do that right when there's these difficult things going on? Is this a battle worth picking? Look, I don't have the answers to all that. And I realize that everything I'm saying in this entire conversation leads to huge conversations that would come out of this. I get that. But I will say one thing. I do know that one of the battles worth picking, one of the battles worth fighting for is if it is a long-term character issue in your kid, someone in your family, then that's a battle worth picking. If it's a long-term character issue, that's a battle worth picking. It's a battle worth fighting for because we care about their character and who they are becoming. Last thing I just want to say is resist a kid-centric marriage. I recently heard someone say, my kid is my universe. Now, I get some of what they're saying, the love that they have for the kid, that's great. But we can take it too far, right? We can take this child and make them the center of our universe, the center of our lives, or the center of our marriage. And anytime, even if it's in a good way that our kid sort of comes in between our marriage, it at that point becomes not so good. So look, yes, take a genuine interest in their lives, but don't let them run your lives, right? Spend time, get into their world, because the only way you get into their lives is by getting into their world, right? You're never gonna lead your family if you're not in their world and in their lives. So yes, do that. And I'm not saying, hey, just do 5 minutes a day, but but it's quality. No, quality and quantity, they always go together, right? Quality time comes out of and from quantity time. So do all of that. Be a rock to them, be a support to them, but don't let them run your life or get in the middle of your marriage. And I know some of you watching, you're like, look, I'm divorced, I'm single, I'm trying to do all this alone now. And I don't have all the answers to that, but let me just say a couple quick things. It may be the way you best care for your ex-spouse and be a good parent is by just simply not trash talking your ex-spouse. Maybe that's the best way you can care for them because of all that's taken place. You just say, I'm not gonna talk badly about them. I'm gonna do everything I can now as a single mom, a single parent dad, to be a good, godly parent to you. We often, when our kids do things good, we take too much credit for it, right? And when our kids do some bad things, we often blame ourselves more than we should as well. So remember the first family in the Bible ever, right? We have Adam and Eve. We have this marriage, the first marriage. They're perfect people. This is before sin came into the picture. So we could say we've got this perfect people, perfect marriage, where they're in the Garden of Eden. It's a perfect place. And who do they have as their parent? God. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they got a perfect parent. Okay, they have all things that none of us have had, do have, will. That's their environment. And what happened? What was the result of these perfect people in a perfect place with a perfect parent? It was rebellion, right? It was sin, it was chaos, it was disaster. They turned from God. So don't be too hard on yourself when your kid goes off the wrong path. or off the right path, don't blame yourself too much. And don't give yourself too much credit when they turn out pretty good either. You be the best parent you can be. Remember that you, more than anyone else, is the number one influencer on your family. So lead them well, right? The question isn't, what have you done up to this point? The question is, who will you be to them? What will you bring to your family today? How will you lead them? How will you care for them and love them and raise them and lead them to know God and to follow him? And the example that we set for our kids will always be more powerful than the things that we tell them. So be the best example and influencer that you can to your family. Let me just close. I just want to pray a blessing over you and your family as you seek to lead them. God, I thank you. I thank you for your gift of love to us. God, thank you for showing us what perfect love looks like. And none of us do that like we should. We don't have that. We don't have perfect relationships. We're not perfect people, but we do have you, and you're a perfect God. And so would you help us and change us, make us to be people that love and care for those in our family more the way you do, to see them the way you do. And God, I pray especially for those families that I know right now, they're struggling, they're hurting. It's difficult. Leading them has multiple challenges. I know there's no easy answers. God, would you be close to them? Would you give them the extra amount of grace that they need? Would you give them the extra amount of patience and understanding and wisdom and love and comfort that they need in their families right now? God, would you cover them, be close to them, supply them with all the things that they need but don't have at the moment? God, we love you, and I pray this in your name. Amen.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind. Deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Come on, lift it up. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Come on, we believe. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. It's so good to worship with you. I can't wait to be back in person worshiping with you in this amazing worship space. That day's coming soon. Thank you, Scott, for that amazing message. Just what I needed today. Leading a family is hard, and you gave so many great tools for being a father, for leading your family, being a parent, and thank you for that. Thank you for your support of your church. I want to invite you, if you're a member of the Grove, if this is your home church, I want to invite you to give as a part of your tithe and offering, and give out of worship. God's doing amazing things here, even in these crazy months. God's been at work, and it's been supported by what you've given. So thank you for the way that you partner with us in that way, and you support the ministries here. Just this week, our youth ministries were doing amazing things. There was an amazing race, a drive-in amazing race, people going all over the community, doing all kinds of things with the youth group. We had actual camps right here that we did, virtual camps, and lots of participation. So our youth are thriving right now because of that. So thank you for your support of that. And right now, as you go about your week, I just want to pray that God's hand would be on you, that his grace and love would just cover you, that you would feel that, and that wherever you go, you would share his love and grace with others. Have a great week. God bless.